Welcome to Trauma Free Relationship. I'm Tom Philp, and if you're new, thank you for joining us. And if you've heard this before, thanks for coming back. I hope you continue to find value in it. I've been working with couples for many, many years, decades, in fact, helping them break their painful cycles that keep them stuck so they can communicate better, stay connected longer, and repair those ruptures faster. Now, I'm really excited about today's episode, mostly because I think this is something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. When I look up other similar therapists or coaches that are doing what I'm doing, I'm not really seeing this particular subject come up. And today we're going to talk about the hidden benefits of cycles. Now, to be sure, there's lots of talk about cycles out there because they're so prominent in our relationship. There's a lot of folks, including myself, that really hone in on those aspects of the relationship that can keep people stuck. Those feedback loops and escalations that so often bog the couple down and prevent them from being able to problem solve, from being able to show up for each other in the way that feels like love, and in being able to grow together in the relationship. So we talk a lot about cycles, but today I'm going to kind of turn that a little bit on its ear, and we're going to talk about some of the benefits of cycles. Now, in psychological terms, this is called secondary gain. Now, what does that mean? Secondary gain really just means that there are hidden benefits, unconscious benefits to doing something, even if it's painful. So cycles can be painful for a lot of couples in the relationship. But can there also be some hidden benefits, unconscious types of benefits that the couple can gain from actually maintaining and supporting those cycles? And so that's what we're going to hone in on today. Now, I've got a list here. This isn't exhaustive, but I think there's about 6 or 7 that I really want to walk through that I think are the most prominent secondary gains or hidden benefits for couples or really anybody in a relationship they might have if they continue to enact their same cycles in their relationship. And so we're just going to walk through these and just see as you're listening to this, if you find yourself in any one of these, if you think, oh man, that possibly could be a hidden benefit that we're not even recognizing to our cycles. And so the first one is getting attention. Sometimes I think we can start an argument because we might need to get attention from our partner. Maybe our partner's been very busy. Maybe we don't know how to ask for it in a more constructed, vulnerable way. So getting negative attention is at least better than getting no attention at all. So I think sometimes one or both partners can feel like the relationship is drifting, is straining, and they want to get each other's more undivided attention, but maybe don't have the skills or don't quite know how to really be able to ask for that from one another. And as a result, what they do is they start picking at things. They start honing in on small details that maybe they can start controlling, but not the bigger picture of, hey, I would love for us to spend more quality time together. I miss you. I want to be closer to you. It's very possible that sometimes one or both partners could be needing attention, and so they fall into the trap of getting into cycles, criticism or blame, when what they're really wanting is for their partner to just pay more attention to them. So I think that's one of them for sure that I see is couples will try to get each other's attention, undivided attention. They'll try to get them to be more emotionally available and responsive to them, but maybe go about it in a negative way. We certainly can see this with our children, right? Our children will get attention sometimes because they need that attention. Whether it's good attention or bad attention, at least they're getting attention. Somebody's paying attention to them. I don't think we're that much different as adults either. Sometimes we don't know how to get our partner's attention, and what we're really needing deep down is just to be have more attention from our partner And so sometimes we might pick a fight to do that. Another thing that I really see is couples can avoid change or responsibility. And so it's easier to fall into cycles because it helps them avoid the uncomfortableness of changing, the uncomfortableness of taking responsibility for their actions, their feelings, and their decisions. And I certainly see this a lot with couples that are trying to figure out what to do with the relationship. They say it's hurtful. They say they don't want to be in it. They say their partner needs to love them differently, and yet they don't leave. And yet, and I'm not advocating partners leave, but they don't. It's not even just that they don't leave. They don't also try to take that next step of, hey, let's do something different here. Let's collaborate and work together. Let's go to therapy, or let's hire a coach. Let's do something. Let's go to a seminar or a program, something that's going to help us break out of this. Because I, as your partner, am not getting what I need, and I'm avoiding the change that might have to occur within me to be able to get more of that. And I'm avoiding the responsibility of that choice, if that makes any sense. We all have choices in our relationship. I was talking to a good friend of mine. He's divorced and dating around and has somebody that he's really enjoyed dating right now. And the other day he said that he's got a choice to make because there's some things in this relationship that could affect him long term, and he has to decide whether that is going to be enough of a deterrence to move forward in this relationship and take it deeper or further or not. And I really applauded him for having, and he's been doing the work, by the way. He's been in his own counseling and therapy and doing his own work. And clearly that showed up because here he was saying, look, I see some yellow flags, let's say. I don't know if they're red flags because he enjoys her very much, but certainly some yellow flags. And as a result, he's recognizing those. He's not glossing over them. He's not saying, oh, well, she'll change down the line, or, oh, it'll be all right if I just ignore it. Rather, he's saying, no, some things would have to change, and that might be uncomfortable to change that. And it might require me to change a little bit too, in ways that stretch me, that stretch my growth, that make me feel uncomfortable, and the responsibility of the choice that I have to make to do that. So that's one thing I certainly see with couples as well, as they avoid the change or the responsibility that comes with the relationship. And so it's easier to fall into these cycles than it is to really face those kinds of things. I think another one is that cycles can just feel normal. I know a lot of people have past traumas, past hurts, past wounds they carry into their current relationship. And it's very possible they grew up in a family where chaos was the norm, where people resolve their differences through raised voices or yelling or threatening the relationship or storming out. This is what was modeled to them. And as a result, cycles and arguing can actually feel normal. And in some ways, it can actually feel like, oh, this is what love feels like. This is what I'm used to. This is the expression of love that I know. When someone's upset with you, they yell at you, scream at you, they might call you names, or they criticize and blame you. And this is what is their way of trying to get the love that they need because they love you. And so this actually feels normal to some people. And so sometimes we can fall into cycles. And the benefit from this is that, oh, well, this is just what love is like. This is actually normal. So that frustration or chaos, the feeling of stuckness that comes with cycles can actually feel very normal to that individual. Another way, we're on the fourth one here if you're keeping track. Another way is protection from vulnerability. So I see this a lot as well. One or even both partners have never learned how to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is something that's going to get you hurt. It's something that's going to leave you feeling shame. You're going to get attacked. Being susceptible to hurt while being vulnerable is sort of a double whammy because one, you're putting yourself out there to be vulnerable. And then two, if you're not getting back something that's more productive and healing and nurturing, then that hits you even harder. One, it's hard to do that. You're creeping out on the edge of the limb, and then two, somebody's behind you sawing off the limb and saying, "Well, you shouldn't have gone out there. That really sucks, doesn't it?" And they're sawing the limb behind you, and you're like, "Oh man, why did I do this? Never again. Never again will I make myself vulnerable to another person because I only get further hurt." So definitely, I think cycles can protect a couple from actually learning how to be vulnerable with one another. It's easier to fall into a cycle than it is be vulnerable. It's easy to criticize or shut down or blame our partner or have a pursue withdrawal or overfunction or underfunction or whatever different kind of cycle you might have in your relationship. It's easier to play that out than it is to actually stop and slow down and try to take the risk of being vulnerable with our partner. So that's another one I see. A sense of control is another one. This is number 5. And certainly I see this with a lot of couples as well. Moving away from feeling helpless. A lot of times our cycles cause us to feel helpless, but it also gives us a sense of control. So we might create a cycle. We might create some kind of conflict in order to avoid feeling helpless. Because when we feel helpless, we don't know what to do. And we don't know what questions to ask to even get the information to know what to do different. So we just end up feeling helpless, which in some ways fuels the cycles even more. So a loss of control and that feeling of helplessness could be one of the hidden benefits, if you will. Not that it's a positive benefit, but it could be one way to mask what's happening underneath, which is, when we're not in a cycle, I feel helpless, and I feel helpless when we get in a cycle. And so it's easier just to be in a cycle and to be angry, because anger at least makes me feel like I'm doing something, than it is to feel sad or lonely or depressed about where we are in our relationship, because that makes me feel helpless. So cycles can actually move me away from feeling helpless into a place where at least I feel like I'm doing something, even if it's not very productive. Number 6, I think cycles can absolutely help couples avoid bigger issues in the relationship. And avoidance, I would say, is certainly one of the bigger ones. Maybe there's some decisions the couple needs to make. Maybe there's some grieving the couple needs to go through, the loss of a child or something along those lines. And it's easier to get into cycles. It's easier to be upset about how each of us might be mourning differently than it is to actually come together and be vulnerable, as I mentioned, but come together and actually mourn the loss of a child and not avoid that mourning process. Or, what is it we need to decide about our relationship or decide about making a big move with the family? So sometimes I can see cycles being created because it actually helps the couple avoid something that's much larger. And maybe that avoidance, especially if you're dating, not particularly so much as if you're married, although that can come with it as well. But maybe if you're dating, it is easier to avoid that there's a lack of compatibility here. So it's easier just to get into cycles than it is to be able to sit with those bigger decisions that have to be made. And certainly I've worked with a lot of non-married couples that have been together a while and they are now at a crossroads. Do we take the path left? Do we take the path right together? Or does one of us go left and the other go right? And we're sitting at a crossroads here, and we can't have both. We cannot have both. We might want both, but we can't have both. And so it's easier to fall into cycles than it is to actually make those decisions that are hurtful, painful, and quite frankly, vulnerable, because we don't always know what's next. And we know there's something on the other side, but it could be painful and it could be worse. And so we just avoid making those decisions. And cycles are a great way to avoid making those decisions. And then the next one is, number 7, is maintaining a familiar role or identity. In other words, this can be sort of the self-fulfilling prophecy of a core belief. So if a core belief you have is, I don't deserve love, I'll never measure up, I'll never be enough, I'm too much for others, whatever that core belief might be for you, and obviously it was born out of some inadequate relationships, some probably past trauma or wounds, but sometimes those core beliefs are so familiar to us that we enact them in our cycles. And if we get into an argument and then we are always the victim, it might be that we're actually enacting a core belief. We're manifesting that into our relationship. And so I've certainly seen that be a lot of reason for cycles as well. Because if I have to always be the victim, then it's easy to create an argument where I'm the victim, or to turn it around where I'm the victim. If I'm always the person that is never getting enough love, then it's easy for me to create a cycle where I end up reinforcing that belief. And so I see a lot of cycles play out where they maintain a core belief or a sense of identity, how we see ourselves in the relationship. And so that's another reason I think there can be some hidden benefits to cycles. Now, notice I'm not saying these are necessarily positive benefits in the hidden benefits. I don't necessarily mean that these are positive benefits, but I do think they are some hidden benefits that sometimes, psychologically speaking, can provide us certain benefits. And so just to reemphasize, I'm not talking about healthy benefits here. Usually these are negative benefits. But cycles can certainly allow us to avoid or to dismiss or delay or even deny other things that might be happening in ourselves or in the relationship. And so just being aware of some of those potential benefits and payoffs, I think, are really healthy. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to recognize those. So, okay, so with this information, what do we do with it now, right? I think that's the next step. So step number one is to identify the hidden benefit. Ask yourself, what is this pattern protecting me from feeling or needing? What is this pattern protecting me from feeling or needing? What is it I might be avoiding, either with my feelings, or might be avoiding a decision that I need to make, or avoiding something that needs to be different within me or within the relationship that this pattern's actually protecting me from. It's actually keeping hidden because I'm so focused on the cycle and this painful pattern I get stuck with in my relationship with my partner. But there's a hidden benefit underneath it. So that's the first thing, I think. Secondly is, if you can identify what that is, well, I'm avoiding a decision that needs to be made about a move for my family, or about a decision about this relationship, or I'm avoiding grieving the loss of our child, or I'm avoiding actually healing that affair my partner had, whatever it might be. Being able to recognize that and then being able to validate that. That's step number two. How can we just validate that? Oh, okay, that makes sense. I've been delaying this for a while. I've been not allowing myself to feel this, or not allowing myself to be vulnerable enough to ask for this. And as a result, it might just be easier to shut down or criticize my partner. It might be easier to vacillate between wanting to be in the relationship and out of the relationship, threatening the relationship. Well, if this doesn't improve, I'm going to leave, whatever it might be. It might be easier to do that than it is to actually sit with those feelings that I've been avoiding and actually learn how to provide those to myself. And that is step number three. How do I help myself create, or give myself the unmet need there? How do I create a new way for me to meet that need? And a new way might be moving from protection to expressing my feelings, moving from protection to vulnerability. It might be moving from avoidance to being able to be more open and more expressive with my partner and actually ask for what I might need in this relationship. Maybe I've got some hurts around feeling like I don't have any right to ask for my needs. I don't have any right to actually put myself out there and say, hey, this is something I'm really longing for in the relationship, and I need you to try to hear this. And so we need to be able to provide that need for us in a different way. Maybe I go get that need met through some different experiences with different friends, a different friend group. If my partner is just incapable of providing that need, then I might have to find that need somewhere else. Or I've got my mom that I'm really close to, or my dad that I'm really close to, or whomever it is. I just can rely on them for those types of needs because I can't my partner, but I haven't even been allowing myself to do that. So finding a new way to meet that need is step number 3. And the fourth one is regulate yourself before replacing the pattern. So we talk about this all the time on here. Regulate before you communicate. Regulate before you communicate. So if you see that you've been avoiding something and the pattern is keeping that masked or hidden, then get yourself regulated, because what will happen is you're less likely to fall into the pattern. But if you're not prepared to be able to take responsibility for what it is you need and you want in that relationship, then you're likely to just repeat that pattern again. So really make sure and hone in on your ability to be able to regulate yourself before you ask for what you need in your relationship, or before you need to feel something you haven't been allowing yourself to feel. Try to get yourself into a place where you're more regulated, because then that's really going to help you not fall back into the cycle. By doing that alone, you're already starting to change the cycle. You're already starting to address what might be hidden underneath the cycle and really be able to meet whatever that need is. Or provide that for yourself, or the relationship might be able to provide that for you, because you'll no longer need the cycle and whatever sort of hidden benefit might lie underneath. All right, thank you so much. Hey, if you're interested in learning more about our cycle reset program, I'll post a link down below. You can sign up and I'll meet you online. We'll have a brief conversation. I'd be happy to lay out what the program looks like and just to see if you'd be a good fit for that.